Whether you're a pro athlete, an exhausted parent, or you spend all day in an office chair, CBD MD wants to give you the support you need to make it through the day. CBD Freeze and Recover are an outstanding duo of topical products with specialized formulas to provide targeted relief where it matters most. And to make it even easier to try Freeze, Recover, and every other CBD MD product, you can take 25% off your next order when you use the promo code NBA at checkout. Once again, that's cbdmd.com, promo code NBA for 25% off your purchase of superior CBD products from CBD MD. Guys, today's show, we're recapping Monday's action in the NBA. Michael Bolton.
Thanks, Josh. It's Michael Bolton here, and it's time for another episode of the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast. Let's get to it.
Let's get to it, indeed.
You are Locked On Fantasy Basketball, your daily fantasy basketball podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast, brought to you by Basketball Monster. My name is Josh Lloyd and I am the lead fantasy analyst at basketballmonster.com and at Yahoo Sports Australia, and you can find me on Twitter as always at redrock_bball and on Instagram at Locked On Fantasy Basketball. 8 games on Monday. Then we're going to do a bit of a preview of Tuesday's action as well. So let's talk about those games for Monday right now. The first one we take a look at is the Houston Rockets getting blown out by the Charlotte Hornets, 119-94. No John Wall, no Eric Gordon, no Christian Wood for Houston. Victor Oladipo scored 21 points, but as usual, he was very inefficient, just 39% from the field. He had 6 assists with 3 threes. He just continues to struggle with high usage and poor efficiency, and that's been basically how he's been in Houston. He's the 122nd ranked player over the last 2 weeks. I am not convinced that he is a top 50 player for the rest of the year. He's just not right at all. He's just struggling quite a bit. Cousins only played 25 minutes. I think a lot of that is a factor of the blowout. 25 minutes, 9-9 with 3 steals. He remains a must-roster player, while the wild thing, Jayshawn Tate, had 13-4 with a steal and a block. Good percentages for Tatey. His upside's not particularly high, but he is the 130th ranked player over the last 2 weeks. The 24 fantasy points here he had were fine as well. And the Rockets have that great schedule, 3 more quality games for the rest of this week, so you can add him and see how it goes. Sterling Brown appears like a guy that just gets stats whenever he plays. 28 minutes, 8, 7, and 5 with a steal. Nice deep league stream, while Daniel House had 13 points in 30 minutes in a spot start. And PJ Tucker battled some foul issues. 0 points in 23 minutes. Tucker has been horrendous. He is not even a top 200 player this year in fantasy. Of course, it goes without saying that you don't want him in 12, 14, or 16 team leagues. Benny McLemore scored 15 points. I believe they all came in one quarter. Didn't do too much more apart from that. Had 4 threes in that 18 minutes, but he appears to be a fair way down the rotation or down the pecking order at this stage. For the Hornets, LaMelo Ball. Man, he's so good. The 53rd ranked player this year, Melo, had 43 fantasy points here, 24, 7, and 10. Now, no steals and no blocks is not great. 7 triples, 39% from the field, 75 from the line. Now, he'd been shooting really well prior to this game. He still had a true shooting of 61% in this contest. I think he can be almost top 30, top 35 from here on out. I don't think he's giving up this starting spot as we move forward. He has established himself as, if not the best player, the second best player behind Gordon Hayward. Really good game. Strong game from Malik Monk as well.
2 for 2.
2 threes, 2 steals, and 2 blocks for Malik, who had a Richie Beno. He had 14 points and 5 assists, picking up the slack with Devontae Graham out. He hasn't done that every game when he's had opportunities. He's had a couple of big ones and a couple of poor ones. He's more of a deeper league stream guy at this stage. But over the last 2 weeks, he has cracked the top 130, so that should give 14-team leaguers at least a little bit of info. Gordy Hayward had 19, 5, and 4, and Miles Bridges, another big rebound night for Bridges, 19 and 10 in 27 bench minutes. He just keeps doing enough to sort of hang around. I wouldn't say that he's a must-roster 12-team league guy. He's the 119th ranked player this season, which tells you that, 12-team league, you're not going wrong by having him there. But there's a lot of ups and downs with what he does that it is hard to just consider him an absolute must roster. Terry Rozier wasn't his best night, 15, 3, and 4 with 28 fantasy points. And Cody Zeller was off his game somewhat too, 10 and 7 in 26. I think Cody remains a 12-team league guy, while Paul Washington Jr. was not good. 3 points in 25 minutes. It doesn't help that Bismack Biyombo got backup center minutes. And we know that Washington really thrives when he plays at that center position. We need Biyombo out of that rotation and his 10 minutes to go to Washington. I am still holding on to Washington at this stage, but he was outplayed by Bridges and by Zeller, and it hasn't been great since he returned from the foot injury. I am still holding him though, barely, but I am still holding him at this point. Let's go on to the next game now. The Toronto Raptors beat the Memphis Grizzlies 128-113. Kyle Lowry went out after 8 minutes with back spasms. Fred VanVleet was awesome. 39 minutes, 32 points, 4 threes, 9 assists, and 3 steals. A perfect 12 of 12 from the line. VanVleet is the 4th-ranked player over the last 2 weeks, really putting up big numbers. And Pascal Siakam was also pretty good here. 32, 5, and 6. True shooting of 76% in this game. Another 6 assists from Siakam, which is something he has really improved over the past couple of weeks. And he's also on a hot streak. 20th ranked player over the last 2 weeks, really starting to put it together. And Norm Powell as a starter was excellent. 37 minutes, 29 points, 6 threes. Now, it's very empty outside of that. 1 rebound, 1 assist. 26 usage, 59% shooting. I would be trying to sell high on Norm Powell because when Anunoby does return, that's assuming Lowry doesn't miss time, but when Anunoby does return, Powell will find it hard to play this much, to have this many shots, and then apparently his confidence disappears when he's on the bench. We've been trying to make guesses about the wiki Chris Boucher. Going up against big men, tough, burly centers, he might struggle. Well, he went up against Jonas Valanciunas, who was tearing his former team a new arsehole, and Boucher played 29 minutes despite shooting 36%. He was a plus 20 in this game. It's going to be a roller coaster, but that is highly encouraging for Boucher's rest of season value. He is a clear must-roster player. If he was dropped, make sure he's added. He had 12 and 10 with 2 threes, a steal, and a block, and there's going to be shit nights in there for sure, but there'll be good ones as well. Aaron Baines had 7 and 6 in 19 minutes, while DeAndre Bembry started in place of Lowry in the second half. He had 6 points with 2 steals, and he's probably getting more minutes than I expected, but I wouldn't say that there's any real sort of fantasy value with Bembry at this point. For the Grizz, Valanciunas, just an absolute monster. 34 minutes, 27 and 20 with a steal and a block. First game back starting after being out with COVID. 92% from the line, 67% from the field. Just big numbers from Valanciunas, who has been was dominating in this game. He is the 47th ranked player this year. I'm not sure how his minutes go or how the usage looks, but this Grizzlies team, when are they ever going to be healthy? They were missing Jaren Jackson, Brandon Clark, DeAnthony Melton, Justice Winslow. That's 4 rotation players. So making judgments on this team is really, really hard to do. Ja Morant continues to be underwhelming. I had him in the buy low show earlier today. He had 18 points on 29% shooting, but at least he hit 2 threes, at least he got 9 assists, and he had a steal. But he's definitely not that same guy we saw to begin the year. I think he's a buy low guy, as I mentioned. Dylan Brooks. Big game from Brooksy. Really good. 22 points, 4 threes, 1 steal, 2 blocks. Shooting percentages weren't great. 51% true shooting is pretty rough on 27 usage, and 37 minutes is a lot. I would love for them to move him to the bench. I'm not convinced that they do, and a game like this would tell me that they probably won't, which is unfortunate. I think he's more of a points league guy rather than a 12-team category league player. He had 38 fantasy points here. Nice game from Kyle Anderson, but all those names that I mentioned, Jackson Clark, Melton, Winslow, they're all going to have an impact on Anderson. He had 15, 4, and 4 with a 1-1, which is really good. He's the 96th ranked player, which is really good. I don't see how it lasts at all as the season moves on. So for now, there's value there, but I don't know if it's going to maintain. Desmond Bane started. Awesome. Been calling for him to start for a long time. 26 minutes, 13 points, 3 threes, 3 rebounds, 3 assists. Totally fine numbers. But the problem again is finding the minutes. With Jackson, Clark, Melton, Winslow, how can he find 30 minutes a night? He probably won't. Should they start him over Brooks? Absolutely, to get a guy that's actually a reliable shooter in there. But they probably won't do that either. Taylor Jenkins' lineup decisions in this game cost them the game. They were up big, and then they went to some absolute bullshit-type lineups with Jones and Conchar and Allen and Tillman. Just ridiculous combinations that cost them the game. So my faith in Bane getting big enough minutes, or Melton getting big enough minutes, or Anderson getting big enough minutes to maintain 12-team value, I just don't see how I can have that sort of trust in those guys. Bane's worthy of a flyer at this point just to see what happens and see whether he can maintain that spot. But Clark could come back next game and Bane's on the bench and playing 22 minutes. Love him in all 14-team leaguers, but 12's, it's cautious for sure. Gorgie Jeng down to 10 minutes in this game. with Tillman getting the backup minutes behind Valanciunas, and you'd imagine Jeng is out of the rotation when Brandon Clark returns. Well, Grayson Allen played 21 minutes and had 12 points with 3 threes. Another solid performance from Grayson, but like so many of these other guys, there just aren't enough minutes to go around for everybody, unfortunately, for those guys. This episode is brought to you by 1010. Now, you may have read about this in the New York Times, InStyle Magazine, or Forbes, and we're excited to tell you about it. 1010 is an exclusive collection of 10 one-of-a-kind engagement rings designed by 10 of the most distinctive designers working today. Using only diamonds responsibly sourced from Botswana, 10 design masters have each produced a uniquely beautiful commitment ring. They're available now exclusively at BlueNile.com, and when they're gone, they're gone. We all know that diamond engagement ring is iconic. It's a timeless expression of the deepest commitment between two people, and with 1010, it's been beautifully re-envisaged in the hands of 10 modern designers working exclusively with sustainably sourced diamonds. If you're ready to mark a special commitment or looking for a unique and meaningful way to celebrate Valentine's Day, you're definitely going to want to check this out. Again, this exciting limited edition collection of diamond engagement rings is now available exclusively at BlueNile.com. All right, the next game up for us to take a look at here, the Washington Wizards beat the Chicago Bulls 105-101. The Wizards were without Russell Westbrook, so they got the win. How many games have the Wizards actually won with Westbrook in the team this year? I imagine their record's pretty poor. Not saying that's a reflection on Westbrook, but at some point, maybe it does become a reflection on him. Anyway, they changed things up, and they started Davis Bertans and Rui Hachimura together. Bertans started out on fire, had 12 points in like the first quarter, and finished with 12 points. He played 38 minutes, so obviously minutes aren't a concern. 12 points with 4 threes and 2 steals, and really just an empty line otherwise. No free throws, 36% shooting. At least the minutes are encouraging. But I'm not convinced that he's anything more than a short-term, I'm not sure what a short-term stream type player. I don't know. It's very hard to get a grasp on where Bertans is, and finding threes off the waiver wire is a lot easier than finding other stats. Hachimura had a good double-double, 19 and 10. That's great. But still no assists, no steals, and no blocks. And this is when I talk about him not being a good fantasy player. Is 19 and 10 looks great on the surface because they're the two big volume numbers. 19 and 10, it's a double-double, it's great. But he doesn't do anything in the other areas. So on the night where he has a stinker, where the shot doesn't go in at 54%, when he doesn't hit 80% of his free throws, then it ends up being 12 and 10 or 12 and 6 with nothing else. And it's not worth having to me in a 12-team league. I could be wrong on that, but I just don't see it with him, and I think that's been the case for him over his entire career. They started Hull Neto, who was on a minutes limit. Okay, Ish Smith played 31 off the bench, 6, 6, and 7, while Alex Len played 21 minutes. Good numbers from Len, 13 and 7 with 2 blocks, had some foul trouble, and that kept the playing time down. And Robin Lopez played 27. But I think holding on to Len is probably the right move at the moment. Let's see exactly what happens next game. Beal had 35, 5, and 7. Rough from the field with just 42%, but 93 from the line is awesome. And a 111 for Brad Beal, who has fallen off a little bit, the 24th ranked player over the last 2 weeks. 56 fantasy points, though, is a pretty good effort. Interestingly, Troy Brown back out of the rotation, as was Mo Wagner. For the Bulls, Dan Gafford, if he didn't get into foul trouble, I think it would have been a good night. 15 minutes, 10 and 5, 1 steal, 2 blocks. Now, he's been absolutely atrocious for the majority of this time. Like, no denying that at all. But this was actually good. And if he stays out of foul trouble and plays at this level, that stat set has 12-team value. I'm not saying to go and add him at all, but I'm saying to at least watch it. And in a 16-team league, I'd take a flyer on him just to see. Because if he plays 22 minutes with Markkanen and Carter and Porter and Hutchison out, he could play 22 minutes. And that might have value. That might even push into 14-team league value. Levine had 35 and 6, while Thad Young had 14, 5 and 6, 2 steals and a block. Young's assist numbers continue to be amazing. He's a top 40 player over the last 2 weeks, and he's a must-roster guy. While Kobe White, what are we going to do with Kobe White? 30 minutes for White, 8 points, 8 rebounds, and 3 assists. 30% shooting, no steals, 1 block. He's not a starting point guard. He just isn't. Now, whether they make that change and put Satoransky in there, I don't think they will. And White is only the 136th ranked player this year. I probably am still holding on to Kobe because I'm just not sure who the higher upside guy that's available on my wire is. but I don't have huge faith in him. Pat Williams wasn't great, 10 points on 29% shooting with 2 threes, but with all those injuries, he's at least worth having a look. And for 14-team leaguers, Denzel the Hammer Valentine is as well. Now, it wasn't a great night from him, Valentine, 11 points in 28 minutes with 3 threes on 31% shooting, but he's been playing at a high enough level that at least give you, at least gives you some level of value to take a look at him for 14-team leagues. I'd say at the bare minimum at this point. Next game. The Minnesota Timberwolves lose to the Mavericks. No Karl Anthony Towns, no Jarrett Culver, and then after just 6 minutes, D'Angelo Russell was out with left leg soreness. This is not the same leg that's kept him out with that quad issue, so we're a little bit worried about what's happening here with D'Angelo. It might actually help the Timberwolves win games if he misses time, but it's not great for our fantasy team. Malik Beasley. I wasn't convinced that Beasley would have this large of a role, would be this level of a shooter, or would be almost inarguably the second best player on this team. I think Towns is the best player, and I think Beasley's the second best player. But he is. 30 points, 6 dribbles, 9 rebounds, 6 assists, a steal, and a block. He's been very, very good. I still question the decision to sign him to a contract and then draft a bloke in the same position, but maybe they can work together. They definitely work together all right today. Anthony Edwards had 41 fantasy points, 31 minutes, 22, 2 and 4, with 2 steals, 2 blocks, and 3 threes. And getting those peripherals, the assists, steals, blocks, hitting threes, gives you hope that when that 30% usage comes down when Russell and Towns play, that he can still produce value. He is an interesting upside player off the waiver wire. Add him and let's just see where it goes. Definitely more value in points leagues though. Rubio played 34 minutes with Russell out, had 7 assists and 4 steals. He can have value TJ McConnell style just from those categories if Rubio has to miss time. And I think deeper leagues, you've got to pay attention to this bloke, Jalen Noel. 18 points in 21 minutes. A 111. He looked good at the end of last year. He's looked good playing this year. I would say that he has looked better than Jake Layman. He's looked better than Jarrett Culver. He's looked better than Josh Okogie all season. He's probably looked better than Rubio until today, to be honest. Not adding him in any 12 or 14-team leagues, but just keep an eye on him for deeper leagues. Okogie moved back into the starting lineup, had 11 points, guarded Doncic, and did a pretty good job of it. He was plus 20 in this game, while McDaniels had 6 points in 20 minutes. I think we can drop Jared Vanderbilt, 22 minutes there, 5 and 4, while Naz Reid had a bit of an ankle problem, but it was also just an absolute stinker. 6 points in 21 minutes for Reid. Again, if you are looking to make a more longer-term move, Reid can be a drop. And you can move on from him to grab a more longer-term type of option. Juancho Hernan-Gomez, they said he may not be in the rotation, but he played 9 minutes. You'd have to think when Towns comes back, he probably finds it hard to get in there. For the Mavericks, I had this bloke on the Buy Low show today. And then he dropped 27-13 with 4 threes and 6 blocks. This is what I was talking about, why he was a Buy Low. 65 fantasy points. We needed the blocks to start coming in. We knew the threes would come in a bit more volume, and they did, and that's awesome. Joshie Richardson was really good. 18, 5, and 8. Those 8 assists had been non-existent for him this season pretty much. Still not convinced that he's must roster in 12 teams, but I don't dislike having him there. Timmy Hardaway had 24 points, while Doncic had 26, 8, and 5. Pretty inefficient night for Donch, while Maxi Kleber had 5 points in 25 minutes. He's more of a 14-team league guy and a streamer for 12s. He'll have the occasional big game, and then he'll have these turds. While Jalen Brunson added 6 assists, one of the better assist streamers who is available for you to take a look at. Guys, the Super Bowl is over. We're done. We're finished with it. No more football. But the NBA is here. NHL is going. College basketball, where you can place bets there. And there's only one place that we trust, and there's only one place that has you covered. And that is betonline.ag. They also do TV shows, reality TV, anything you can name, any sort of props that you're after. betonline.ag will have you covered. Don't sit on the sidelines anymore. Get in on the action. Don't forget to use the promo code LOCKEDON, and you'll receive a 50% welcome bonus with your first deposit. BetOnline are your online sportsbook experts. All right, let's move on. Next game here, we've got the Golden State Warriors going down to the San Antonio Spurs, 105-100. Steph Curry was great again, 32, 7, and 6 with 6 threes on unbelievable efficiency, while Kelly Oubre, as he turned the corner, well, he's the 74th ranked player over the last 2 weeks, so I feel pretty comfortable in saying maybe. He is a must-roster player, 24 points, 4 triples, 2 blocks. It was an exercise in patience, but it is why we should have patience, and the same goes for Draymond Green. 7 points, but 10 boards, 10 assists, 1 steal, 2 blocks. Fibonacci Green didn't double his block total in this one, but the block numbers are way, way up. Now, some of that probably has to do with James Wiseman being out, but also Draymond has been a historically good shot blocker, and it just doesn't go away. He had like 2 blocks in 15 games or 10 games or whatever it was, and that just was never going to be something that stuck. He's still going to be a bad shooter. He missed both of his free throws and was 27% from the field, but he's the 51st ranked player over the last 2 weeks. You don't leave that on the waiver wire. Wiggins had 11 points with 5 rebounds, 4 assists, and 2 steals. And Toscano Anderson, with the Warriors' good schedule, he's a great stream. 8 points, 11 boards in 29 minutes. Kent Bazemore couldn't keep up his heroics from last game, while the triangle Eric Pascal returned 4 points in 12 minutes. Obviously, that's not super impressive from Pascal. For the Spurs, all right, let's talk about it.
Maximum Derek.
Now, everyone out there throwing shade at me on Discord, in the YouTube comments, on Twitter, on Instagram. Man, Derek White, he sucks. Josh, what are you talking about? You don't know what you're talking about. I guess ignoring the fact that I said it's going to be a few weeks and it's going to be rough at first. You can ignore the fact that I've said that 50 times. But also, he shot 1 of 11. If you believe that Derek White is a 1 of 11 shooter, a 9% field goal guy, by all means, tell me that I'm trash and I don't know what I'm talking about. But I can 100% assuredly guarantee you that he is not. It has been a rough start for Derek White with the shooting in particular. And this one was particularly egregious. And now he's not going to play on Tuesday. If he is dropped in my league, I will add him, no questions asked. I have said repeatedly, I think he can be a top 50 player, but not this season. Because I think it's just, he's had no preseason. He's missed a month of the year already. He's got to work his way back in. It's going to be rough to start things off. He had 2 points, 2 rebounds, 3 assists, and a steal. I don't think I could have been any clearer about any of this. And especially saying, I don't think that he's an all-star caliber player. I don't think he's an all-NBA player. I just think he's really good. He's underrated. And I'm holding him now, but it's going to be rough to begin this season. And I think all that's panning out at this point. So go ahead and drop him if you want. I'm not here to tell anyone what to do. Do whatever the hell you want. I don't give a shit. Do whatever you want. I'm not here to tell you what to do. I'm here to tell you what I'm doing and what I would suggest to do. And what I would do is I would add him if someone drops him. Because I know he isn't a 9% shooter. I know he is better than this. Obviously. Very obviously. DeMar DeRozan was pretty good. If you disagree with that, by all means, put your money on him being a 9% shooter. That's great. But he's better than this. DeRozan had 21, 6, and 10. Perfect 8 of 8 from the line. Let's talk positive. Dejounte Murray was excellent. 27 and 10. 8 steals. That's massive. 53 from the field. 83 from the line. Now, I'll tell you what I'm going to suggest to do with Dejounte Murray here, and you're going to hate it, but I reckon it's a sell high. He had 65 fantasy points, and I'll tell you why. Because I read fantasy basketball all day, every day. I see what people talk about. I see how people view people, and people love Dejounte Murray. They love him even way more than what his current fantasy numbers would indicate. And you could say that I do the same for Derek White, and that's fine. You say that. And I agree with that. That my future projection of Derek White is better than what he's done in the past. Fine. But the reason I say this for Dejounte Murray is that after a game like this is when you throw out the trade offers. Because there'll be someone out there who just absolutely hypes this bloke, and he is not a 53% shooter. 8 steals is 100% unrealistic, and 27 points is not really. He hasn't even been a top 50 player this year, Murray, which is fine. He's 61st. I think he jumped like 18 spots today. I think he was 78th or something before today. So I think it's a sell high. But if someone doesn't want to give you a top 50 guy back in return, who cares? Write it out. Enjoy it. It was great. He was unbelievably good in this game. Like very, very good. Probably the best game of his career. Fantastic. Jakob Poeltl was pretty good as well. 14 and 11 with 4 blocks, and he didn't take a free throw, which is awesome for a bloke that's shooting about 20% from the line. That's great. I don't know when Aldridge is coming back, but for the time being, you got to roster Poeltl. Patty Mills had 9 points. Keldon Johnson, pretty rough from him. I still believe he's a 12-team league guy, but now he's outside the top 110 for the year. It's moving into 10-team drop territory. The minutes are pushing down a bit for Keldon. I'm losing a bit of faith in him, to be honest. just with the way things are going at this stage. I'm not completely out on him, of course, but I am losing. I'm just losing a little bit of faith in Keldon. I'm still holding, but I'm a little worried about which direction it's going to go in. Unfortunately, Rudy Gay had 11 in 26, and Devin Vassell I thought looked really good out there, but there's just not enough playing time out there for Vassell this year to be the guy that we want him to be. Next game, the Cavs, the Suns. The Cavs started Andre Drummond and Jarrett Allen together. The big avocado and Allen. 36 minutes to Drummond, 34 to Allen. I know Nance was out. I know Love was out. I wouldn't have done this. The team actually got out-rebounded playing these guys, and they struggled defensively together. Now, they only lost by 6 points on the road to the Suns, so it wasn't a complete disaster. Drummond was a +3. Allen was a 0. So they weren't, completely destroyed. In fact, the only guy who they actually got really destroyed in his minutes was Isaac Okoro. He was a -20. That's terrible for the 25 minutes that he played. I just don't understand why would you play Drummond and Allen together. It's great for Allen's minutes if that's the direction we're going to go with Love and Nance both out. But put Windler in there. Play Prince there. It's very confusing to me. Sexton, great efficiency. 23 points, 67 from the field, but still only 2 rebounds, 5 assists, only took 1 free throw. Definitely not as good as what he was to begin this year, Colin. While the big avocado had the 15 and 14 with 3 steals and 2 blocks. Apart from the free throws, a good game from Drummond. Strong from Garland as well, 17, 2 and 7, but only 33% shooting. And the artist formerly known as Taurean Prince had 13 and 6, which is not bad, but he's only a 14 to 16 team league guy. Rough night from Okoro, 11 points in 25 minutes. He does not look like he's even threatening 16 team league fantasy value so far this season. For the Suns, Monty Williams was going to go small again, but then he heard that the Cavs were starting Drummond and Allen together and went back to that formidable combination of Kaminsky and Ayton. If you think you have to match up, if you're scared of the Cavs and you have to match up lineups against them, to me that's just so reactive. If I was a coach, I don't think I'd be that reactive. Now, I'm not a coach, obviously, but I'd be like, how about I just do what I do and have confidence that I'm better and let the other team adjust to me? Because it goes both ways. Oh, no, the Cavs have got Drummond and Allen out there. But you go, well, I've got small guys out there. Good luck to Andre Drummond chasing those blokes around the perimeter. It could get ugly. That's how I would be doing it. Like, I need to change because Drummond and Allen are out there. Let's throw Frank Kaminsky out onto the perimeter. Now, it worked. They won. Kaminsky was a -8. But getting a win without Chris Paul's good. Big game from Devin Booker. 36, 5 and 8. 52% shooting. No Chris Paul. He played as a point guard. Fantastic stuff. That's 19 assists in the last 2 games for Booker. It's trending around. But I did look into some of his passing numbers today. He's making the exact same amount of passes this year than last year. But his potential assist numbers and his actual assist numbers are way down. That just means his role in the passing chain in the offense is completely different. Now, it worked well here when he was the point guard, but I'm not convinced that this is a turnaround in his assists. Good from DeAndre Ayton to get 16 boards and 3 blocks, but 2 free throw attempts. 15% usage without Chris Paul. Get aggressive, my guy. Now he's pushing up. He's the 68th ranked player, but top 20. He needs to average 20 points per game, and I'm not sure he's going to do that. Etuan Moore played 40 minutes. Yeah, he started in place of Chris Paul, had 17 points, 4 assists, 2 steals, and 1 block. You could argue that's almost the best game of Etuan Moore's career. I wouldn't be rushing to add him if Paul is going to miss time. Kaminsky had 9 and 5 in 29 minutes, while Langston Galloway had 9 points in 16 minutes, and Javon Carter had 3 in 19. Remember that Cameron Payne was also out, so the scenario where I was holding Cam Payne in my 30-deep league for a game when Chris Paul was out was obviously nullified because Cameron Payne was also out, which is unfortunate. No Crowder, Payne, Paul, Šarić, and Nadir. So they were missing a lot of rotation players in this game. McCall Bridges also had him on the buy low show today. He ended up with 22, 4 and 5, a triple one, and shot 80% from the field. And like when I talked about Derek White before, he was shooting about 7% from 3, Bridges, over the last 2 weeks. And I said, I guarantee you it won't continue that way. He was 1 of 2 from 3, and the shooting turned around. And the steals are going to come in, and he was a buy low, but you obviously can't buy low after a performance like this unless the other person has no idea what they're doing. All right, let's move on now to the next game. The Milwaukee Bucks beat the Nuggets on the road comfortably in the end. 125-112, Jrue Holiday was out due to health and safety protocols. We don't know how long that's going to be the case for, but that's obviously going to boost the value of a lot of players. Starting with the big ragu, Donte DiVincenzo. 31 minutes, 13 and 7, 3 threes, 3 steals, 2 blocks. I'm most encouraged by the 31 minutes. I'd add DiVincenzo if he's on the wire. Yanni had 30 and 9 with 3 blocks, while Middleton had 29, 8 and 12 with 3 steals. He just continues to be absolutely amazing. He's the 25th ranked player this year, Chris Middleton. Bryn Forbes started. It wasn't DJ Augustin. Forbes had 15 points with 3 threes. We have seen Bryn Forbes as a starter in the NBA for many, many years. He will not be a 12-team league ad, nor will DJ Augustin. You can stream Augustin for assists. You could stream Forbes for threes if Holiday is out long-term. And by long-term, I mean 3-4 games. He's not going to be out for months. But we just don't know the complete story here with Jrue. But DiVincenzo, to me, is the big winner there. Bob Portis, 20 minutes, 7 and 6. Not great, but his body of work has been really good this year. I know I know people just keep shitting on me for it. I just cannot get my head around the fact that he's a must-roster 12-team league guy. Nothing about it tells me that he is, except for the fact that he has been. Brook Lopez had 13 and 7 with 2 threes in 28 minutes. Therefore, back to Portis. Therefore, he is. You just roster him. But I think I'm going to be sitting here in March. I hope I'm going to be sitting here in March and saying, I knew it, because it will make me feel better about not losing my friggin' mind about Bobby Portis. But it wasn't a great night for him here. Torrey Craig had 9 points with 3 threes in 23 minutes. Hit all of his shots. Cool. That's nothing that's going to continue. Big Chungus.
Big Chungus, Big Chungus, Big Chungus, big.
35, 12, and 6. One of the underrated things about Jokic this season is usage is way up, 26 shots, and minutes are up, 39 minutes. Also a big game from Fart and Will Barton, who has not been a top 150 player this year, but 24 points, 4 assists, and 2 steals. I think he's still more of a 14-team league guy than a must-roster 12-teamer, but stream value in 12s is there. Mickey Porter started next to Barton. I'm going to tell you, he looks rough. He doesn't look good at all. 8 points in 27 minutes, 7 rebounds, 2 threes, a steal, and a block. I guess it's encouraging that he looked this shit and Malone still played him 27 minutes. But when Harris comes back, I am not confident in Porter holding on to these minutes. You still got to hold him in fantasy, but the top 50, I reckon, is in significant danger. The headmaster was bad. 11 points on 24% shooting coming back from that knee issue. He had 4 assists, but it has been a disappointing season from Jamal Murray, while Monty Morris had 12 points with 3 assists. Not a lot else to talk about there. Poor Millsap had 14 points in 30 minutes. He had 3 blocks and a steal, which is great, but he's more of a 16-team league player, while JaMychal Green only played 17 minutes. Now, Green's minutes had been trending up, but this obviously trends in the other direction, and he is only that 14 to 16-team league guy. I worry a lot about where Porter goes from here. He doesn't pass. He doesn't defend. He takes poor shots. I don't know. I'm very worried about where all this ends up for him on this Nuggets team. You can see there's obviously personality issues and clashes and play style clashes. I don't know. I'm just worried about what he's... Because remember how good he started off? Like the top 25 player. But there's more that goes into it than this guy can take anyone one-on-one. That's not how basketball works. Quite obviously, and Porter almost feels like I can take anyone one-on-one type of player, but not sure how positive the team impact is always going to be, unfortunately for him. All right, let's go on to the last game of the night. The Lakers get over the Thunder in overtime, 119-112. Gilgeous-Alexander played 42 minutes, had 29, 7, and 10 with a block. Massive from him. He continues to be, I guess, marginally disappointing if you drafted him in the top 20, but if you picked him in the top 30, I think he's about the right area. Darius Bazley, 42 minutes, 21 and 16, 2 threes. The most encouraging thing to me here with Bazley is he shot horribly, and that might sound contradictory, but the fact that he still had 42 minutes, 21 and 16 with 2 threes on 33% shooting is why I'm encouraged. I still believe he's a must-roster player. 41 minutes for MC Hamidou Diallo.
Stop. Hammer time.
41 minutes, 20 points, 11 rebounds, a 111. Big numbers from Diallo, who at the moment is putting up 12-team worthy numbers with Teo Maladon out and George Hill sidelined, so you can roster him, while Al Horford's big run continues. 14, 5, and 3, 2 threes, a steal, and a block. He had a 26% usage. Only shot 30%, so not great, but yeah, pretty good overall. Justin Jackson, 14 points in 27 minutes. This is the one Justin Jackson game. While Lou Dort is struggling.
No, my son is also named Bort.
Guys, Lou Dort is not a 12-team league player, and I'm sure you would all be stunned to know that Dort is having a worse fantasy season than Baisley. Now, that goes contradictory to the amount of people who have said to me, hey, Josh, you should have had Dort, not Baisley, as your last round sleeper. But Dort is not a very good fantasy player, and he is just a deeper league player. I do not think that he has the level of upside that Baisley does, personally, from a fantasy perspective. On to the Lakers. They were without Anthony Davis and Alex Caruso, so Markieff Morris started. He did nothing, but he started. He played 26 minutes and had 6 and 4. But it was Wes Matthews who really stepped up. 16 points, 4 triples, 26 minutes, 2 steals and a block, 71% shooting. Do not overreact to this. Do react a little bit to Talen Horton-Tucker, who had 8 points in 27 minutes, but another 2 steals and 2 blocks. And he's in 14-team league, maybe roster-type territory. Big game from LeBron, of course.
LeBron James.
28, 14 and 12. And Richie Beno.
2 for 222.
And was 80% from the line and 50% from the field. He's creeping up, and he probably is going to be top 20 after today, and he's the 9th ranked player over the last 2 weeks. It's been a relatively slow start, hampered by some poorer percentages from LeBron, but he is cranking out big numbers at the moment. It was also a big one from Montrezl Harrell, 21 and 8 in 30 minutes without Anthony Davis, while Kyle Kuzma had 11 and 10 and only played 23 minutes, which is a little bit disappointing. Dennis Schroeder had 19 points in 38 minutes against his former team, but shot 38%, including 60% from the line as well. Had a triple one with 7 rebounds and 5 assists. Overall, not a bad line, but he's not a top 120 player so far this season. In a lot of cases, you can get more value from streaming out of that spot, but in some spots, he's going to be a 12-team league guy. It just depends on how you want to run your team and how aggressive you're going to be with a streaming strategy. Let's now have a look at the top ads over the last 24 hours. Pat Williams up 34%, Josh Jackson up 29%. I think both of those make sense, especially Jackson considering the Pistons play on Tuesday. Williams is going to be up and down, but with all the injuries to Markkanen and to Carter, he's someone to look at. Kendrick Nunn up 18%, that makes sense. While Maxi Kleber up 16%. He was obviously horrible today, Kleber. I think he's more of a stream 14-team league guy. While Lou Williams up 10%. I think that's based on the big game that he had last time the Clippers played. I'm not reading into Lou as a must-roster 12-team league guy. In terms of drops, DeAnthony Melton's down 23%. Just too much of a squish on their minutes. He does lead the team in net rating, which nobody should be surprised about, but I just don't know if he's going to play enough. Quickly down 16%. That's reaction to the Derrick Rose trade. Rob Williams down 11%. Makes sense. He's just not playing enough. Alexander Walker down 7% out of the rotation last game, so hard to hold on there unless you're in a luxury stash scenario, while Royce O'Neal down 7%. I still think Royce can be a 12-team league guy, and I wouldn't be so quick to drop him. The monstrous line of the night is Kristaps had 24 points with 13 rebounds and 6 blocks. Sorry, he had 27 points. So where did I get 24 points from? 27 points, 13 rebounds, 6 blocks, 4 assists, 53% shooting. He'd been on my buy low list earlier today. Hopefully you executed something to get it because you're not getting it after a game like this. That happens so often that I put a guy on the buy low show and then that very day he has a big game. I think he can push up into the top 30 for the rest of this season. And the Rookie of the Night, it's the same as the Rookie of the Night yesterday. It is LaMelo Ball, who had 24, 7 and 10, hit 7 triples, tying a franchise record. He didn't shoot particularly well, just going for, 39 from the field and 75 from the line, but a top 50 finish from here on out seems almost guaranteed for LaMelo Ball. The top 10 players in category leagues for today, number 1 was Porzingis, number 2 was Van Vliet, number 3 was LeBron, number 4 was Dejounte Murray, number 5 was Middleton, 6 was Steph, 7 was Valanciunas, 8 was Big Chungus, 9 was Siakam, and 10 was Malik Beasley. And then for points leagues, number 1 was LeBron, 2 was Dejounte Murray, 3 was Porzingis, 4 was Middleton, 5 was Valanciunas, 6 was Jokic, 7 was Malik Beasley, 8 was Beal, 9 was Van Vliet, and number 10 was Pascal Siakam. So that covers the recap there for all of Monday's action. So let's have a look now at Tuesday's games and talk about them right now. All right, let's take a look now at action here for Tuesday in the NBA, 7 games on. Let's have a look at some injury news. The first game, the Nets and the Pistons, Kevin Durant is out. We don't know if Dennis Smith Jr. is going to be ready to play for the Pistons, so that would leave Delon Wright with a lot of minutes, but Delon Wright is also questionable. So what would mean then? Josh Jackson at point guard? Saban Lee playing a ton of minutes? Because even Frank Jackson's listed as questionable for the Pistons. Blake Griffin missed the last game, so he should return, while Kyrie Irving, who also missed last game for Brooklyn, he'll be back in this one, listed as probable with a finger injury. Lots of issues, though, in terms of injuries for this early game. The second game is the Knicks and the Heat. We don't know if Derrick Rose is going to be able to play. He is down with the team in Miami, and how the hell that rotation looks, I have no idea. The Heat are going to be without Mo Harkless and Goran Dragic and Avery Bradley again, while Gabe Vincent is probable. Nerlens Noel also questionable for the Knicks. The Rockets and the Pelicans, Victor Oladipo will be out of this one, while John Wall and Eric Gordon will return, and Josh Hart is questionable for the Pelicans, so maybe that means that Nickeil Alexander-Walker gets back into the rotation after missing out last game. The Warriors and the Spurs, we need to check on the status of LaMarcus Aldridge, whether he returns to action. Derek White will be out, while Lonnie Walker will return, and James Wiseman and Kevon Looney will be out for the Warriors. For the Magic and the Blazers, Al-Farouq Aminu, the Chief, the OG.
Sometimes may be good, sometimes may be shit.
He's questionable, while Michael Carter-Williams is out. Evan Fournier is out as well, while Lillard is back in. Derek Jones is probable, and Nasir Little is out. So with Fournier out, you're probably going to get Bacon and Ennis starting again, would be my guess. But that means more minutes as well for Frank Mason III, so keep an eye on that. The Sixers and the Kings, Mike Scott is out, as he is every single game, while the last game is the Jazz and the Celtics. Jaylen Brown is questionable, while Mike Conley is out, so Joe Ingles will get another start there. Of course, Marcus Smart also is out for Boston. So that's how we've got those games at this point. Now, just a quick overview of some value FanDuel plays. I'll update this more on the pregame show tomorrow. I like Boogie Cousins a lot. I think Keldon Johnson's worth looking at. Joe Ingles looks great. Dejounte Murray, Nick Vucevic, Damian Lillard, Cole Anthony, Kemba Walker, even Steve Adams could be an okay play. Jordy Clarkson looks great as well. John Wall at 77 also looks pretty interesting to me, but that is how the state of things are at the moment. Remember, look at my pregame show tomorrow, 6:30 p.m. Eastern on YouTube, as I go through all of the updated lineups, ins and outs and questionables, and give more updated DFS value over there. Guys, that'll do it for today's show. Don't forget to subscribe, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, and on YouTube. Give it a thumbs up. Leave a comment down below. Hit the bell for notifications as well. Guys, we are done here. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. See ya.